Hello guys and welcome here from my living room in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, where I'm staying safely inside, as I hope you are doing as well. If you're new to the channel, my name is Jeroen Mul. I'm a professional racing driver working for Lamborghini and doing all sorts of cool stuff with supercars. And in today's video, I want to address one of the most frequently asked questions that I get either in person or through my social media accounts. And that is, how did you actually get to become a professional racing driver? And more specifically, how did you get to go and work for Lamborghini? So that's what I want to address to you in this video and tell you exactly my story. So first of all, I just want to tell you that it's still an absolute dream come true for me to be able to call myself a professional racing driver, and it's still very unreal to me as well that I actually get to work for this iconic supercar brand. It all started back when I was about 10 years old. I was just a little boy that was crazy about cars, but I didn't come from I don't come from any racing family. I don't come from a family in car business. It just all started with my own passion and my own excitement for cars. And when I went on a birthday party of a friend of mine in middle school and we went go-karting, I came home from that so incredibly excited, as this was the coolest thing that I had ever done, that my parents actually said, well, if you're so excited about this, let's go explore this and see if you can do this a little bit more often. Still didn't have any idea what we were getting ourselves into, but my dad and I went over to our local go-karting track, learned a little bit on how this all works, and I was fortunate enough to get my own little go-kart when I was this tiny little boy, which I could then drive around in. Really, at this time, it was a pure and simple hobby. Just once or twice a month, maybe, on a Wednesday afternoon after school or on a Sunday morning, my dad would take me to the go-kart track where I can just do some laps and then go home again. And this actually went on for years like this. I didn't even compete in competition like you would hear from other racing drivers that also started in go-karting but already from a young age were competing. For me, this was truly just a hobby. It was only about when I was around 14 years old and I met some guys my age at this go-karting track that told me about these races that they were entering. That piqued my interest. Our dads got to talking and I actually got to come along with them, go to one of these races and do my very first race. Still absolutely not very successful. I was mainly just scared of all the guys racing around me and trying to survive and make it to the finish. But after that, I did get very excited about this new world that just opened up to me. We got to learn a little bit more. Eventually I got into this semi-pro team that was actually representing an Italian go-kart manufacturer, Energy Go-Karts, and I got into the Rotax series, 125cc, two-stroke, in the Dutch competition, and started to get a little bit more serious. But this was still very much just a hobby, go-karting on the weekends, doing some races here and there, and eventually also started winning some. Then, when I was about 15 years old, I realized that in the year that you were 15 and turning 16, you were actually allowed to get your racing license for car racing. This was back in 2005, 2006, and the idea of being allowed to drive a car on a racetrack and actually race it at the age of 16, when I wasn't even allowed to get my car driving license for the road, as in the Netherlands you had to be 18 at that time, it was the most exciting thing I could think of. So when I turned 15 on my 50th birthday, on the top of my wish list for my birthday was to be able and to be allowed to get my racing license. And in January of 2006, my dad and I went to the Rensportschool Zandvoort, the racing school here at the Dutch circuit of Zandvoort, to go do the course to get my racing license. This was a 3-day event, 3 consecutive Saturdays in winter, when I got to drive this rented Ford Sierra beat up car with just a little roll cage, a seat and a loud exhaust, but not much power, and basically learn how to race a car, do all sorts of crazy stuff. We learned how to do drifts, donuts, J-turns, 180 spins, but also properly learning the lines on the racetrack. And it was the most incredible and exciting thing I've ever done and experienced. And from this point, I was truly hooked to car racing. At the end of this course, you had to do a written and a practical exam. And to my great surprise, out of the 55 people that entered for the exam and wanted to get their license that year, I was the youngest and got the highest score of them all. I got a little award for this. And it just absolutely blew my mind. I had no idea that I got this high of a score. This immediately drew some attention from some Dutch racing teams that got in touch with my dad and asked if I wanted to come and test one of their race cars. But my parents were still very anxious and held everything off, as they said, well, this is just a hobby. It's not a career path. You have to stay focused on school. So don't get ahead of yourself. We're just gonna keep doing this as a hobby, but nothing more serious than that. So in 2006, as being just a hobby, my dad and I entered into the Dutch VW Golf Endurance Championship. Now this was a championship mainly for gentlemen racers driving a race spec VW Golf 5 TDI 2-liter diesel car in endurance racing in and around the Netherlands. So mainly on Zandvoort, Assen. We did an event at Spa, I believe, Zolder and Oschersleben in Germany. Now these races were 4-hour, 6-hour, even a 24-hour race in Germany on the circuit of Oschersleben. And they were just low budget, gentleman racer for hobby racers with a diesel car, low maintenance costs. You can easily run them for 24 hours. And it was just a very fun and easy way to do a lot of mileage in a race car. But still, as you can expect, this was all just a hobby. We didn't know anything about it, so this was the way we practiced this. But soon after that, or soon during those seasons, in 2006 and 2007, people on the circuit of Zandvoort mainly approached me and said, well, you're just a young guy that wants to go racing. Why are you racing against these older gentlemen? You should go into some sprint series with a Formula car, a single-seater, where you can actually compete against guys your age. So in 2007, I got the opportunity to test a Formula Gloria race car. And this was just basically a tuned up, a little bit of a go-kart on steroids with a 1000cc motorcycle engine, steel chain driven to the rear axle. It had some spoilers on it, wings, but they didn't really generate any downforce and were purely there for aesthetics. But it already gave me the feeling like I was in a small Formula 1 car. I felt like a Formula 1 driver, and I got to compete in sprint races against guys my age. And this again hooked me like it did back in 2005 and 6 when I was doing that racing license course. So I got to do that for a season, win some races, and again learn more about the entire racing industry. This put me in touch with some guys that wanted to help me run a Formula Ford season in the Netherlands in 2008. Formula Ford back then was the leading class and championship and type of car for young drivers, young boys or girls that wanted to get into professional single-seater racing, and mainly with the dream and goal of getting into Formula 1. And as a Formula Ford didn't have any wings, it had low power, low weight, a 4-speed H-pattern gearbox, duck box, so you didn't have to use the clutch. Very, very focused racing car where you just had to focus on getting or using the mechanical grip of the car and really learn how to control a car like this. It was the ultimate and the optimum stepping stone into professional racing and hopefully getting into Formula 1. I got the opportunity to run that championship in 2008 with this private team in the Benelux Championship. Learned a lot, but didn't really get to the point where I wanted to be. But I did get the attention of one of the biggest and most profound young driver academy teams in the Netherlands, and that is Van Amersfoort Racing. Van Amersfoort Racing is a true top-end name that has schooled young drivers such as Jos Verstappen, Max Verstappen. And this team offered me the opportunity to come race Formula Ford with them in 2009, learn their ways, and then go into Formula Renault and potentially Formula 3, which was their main class and their main focus within the team. So this was an opportunity of a lifetime. This was an absolute dream come true to get this opportunity, and immediately they helped me learn how to handle myself professionally in the motorsport industry. They took me all the way back to the basics, learned me how to brake properly, how to drive properly, how to engineer a car, how to work with a data engineer, read the data that comes out of a car, learn how to set up, learn how to be physically as fit as I needed to be, and just basically take me to the ultimate young driver Formula car school. So in 2009, immediately once we got started into that championship series in Formula Ford again, I was getting on the podiums and managed to get the second place in the Benelux Championship. So coming from that Formula Ford season with that second place in that championship, we get to 2010 where I get my promotion to Formula Renault. Formula Renault 2 leader in the Northern European Championship in 2010. Renault Sport just introduced the brand new Formula Renault 2 leader car with more downforce, a bigger car looking more towards Formula 3, having a pedal shift gearbox, which to me was just the coolest thing, as I now truly had the feeling that I was driving a mini Formula 1 car. And from the start we were successful with this car and with this team, winning races and eventually finishing third in this Northern European Championship. Now, after only just that single season in Formula Renault and with this success, Van Amersfoort Racing offered me the opportunity to go test and then drive in their Formula 3 car. Now this was the pinnacle of what Van Amersfoort Racing was offering. And together with the support of Volkswagen Motorsport that Van Amersfoort Racing was having at the time, I was entering in the 2011 ATS Formula 3 Cup in Germany. I even got to go on the Volkswagen Motorsport fitness camp where we had to go through this 3-day fitness drilling camp together with names as Felipe Nasser and Tom Blomqvist that were also still in Formula 3 at that time and under the flag of Volkswagen. Crazy cool experience. So during this year, I again learned a lot. It wasn't the most successful year, but one of the biggest learning moments of my career happened in that year, and that was that I learned how extremely difficult the road to Formula 1 actually is, and that it doesn't just rely on talent. It relies on connections, on money, sponsorship, backing, and just everything has to come together in order to get to one of those 20 seats that are available in Formula 1. And at that time I was still really aiming and focusing myself on that dream career in Formula 1, but I also really realized that with my lack of having any connections in the motorsport industry, not having a name or a pedigree to fall back on, not having the financial sponsors backing me to be able to get me all the way to that step, it was pretty much impossible for me to get into Formula 1. And this was a big wake-up call for me, because at this time I had to make a plan for myself and think, well, at this moment I actually got to the point where I was treating racing as a professional career and handling myself in this way, going to the gym, making sure that I was fit and ready. In the meantime, I was still going to school because my parents always prioritized school, which I'm very grateful for. And I was in a business school at the time here in the Netherlands learning about the automotive industry, for which I actually got my BBA degree in 2012. But I had to make a decision. And at this point, I realized that if I compared myself to other drivers, I maybe had the potential of becoming a professional racing driver, but that to make it into Formula 1, that would be too difficult for me. So I looked at it from another point of view, another perspective, took my skills and my knowledge that I got from my business school and actually looked at it from a more commercial point of view and just looked at the potential of in which championship and which kind of category of racing I had the most likely opportunity to become a paid professional racing driver. And that was in touring cars or in GTs, because there was just way more options from manufacturers that invested in these cars. And in my opinion, the Porsche Super Cup was the ultimate championship to display myself to a big brand like Porsche, but also other brands, as this championship was widely broadcasted on the international television. It was a support event to Formula 1, so I got to travel with the Formula 1 circus all around the world and be a support event to this, and it was just the ultimate platform. So I managed to get a sponsorship deal for 2 years to get me into Porsche Super Cup together with the Bleekemolen racing team from the Netherlands, and I got into this crazy GT adventure. So for 2 years I competed in the Porsche Super Cup from 2012 and 13. It was an incredible experience where I got to drive on all these amazing Formula 1 tracks, such as this street track through Valencia, which doesn't exist on the Formula 1 calendar anymore. I got to race in Monaco twice. I got to go to Bahrain, to Abu Dhabi. It was just an incredible experience. I had reasonable success there, but not really head-turning. So at the end of my second season in 2013, I had to conclude for myself that as I didn't get any big offers, as I didn't win the championship, I had to conclude my racing career as it was right there and really started to focus on a regular career, because a professional career just didn't seem to be in the cards for me. So after I finished the final race in Abu Dhabi, finished the end of the season party, I went on a little vacation trip, end of season trip to Dubai. And as I was still there, just a week after that final race, I got a call from a German racing team offering me a position on their Lamborghini Gallardo GT3 car that they were going to enter in the 2014 24-hour race of Dubai. This event would be in January of 2014, and as I had never driven an official GT3 car, and this was truly one of the championships that I had my eye on for a potential professional career working for a manufacturer, this opportunity came as my final last resort to display myself in a GT3 car and see if this was actually a championship that I could really fit in well. What I didn't know at the time was that the car that I was going to be racing was developed by Reiter Engineering, a third-party German engineering company that, under the license of Lamborghini, built this race car, but that Lamborghini themselves didn't really build any race cars. But Lamborghini was, in fact, developing their brand new Squadra Corsa Motorsport department at that time. And during that event in Dubai, there were a few engineers present from the Lamborghini factory to gather information and knowledge about GT3 racing in order to use that in the development of their new motorsport department. So I got to enter the 24-hour race in Dubai with this Lamborghini Gallardo GT3, finishing second in our class, doing very well and being very happy with the performance. And at the end of the race, one of the engineers approaches me and asks me if I wanted to come to the factory to meet their new head of motorsport, Giorgio Sanna. I was obviously truly honored because they asked me to come to the factory and speak to him about potentially working together with the newly formed Lamborghini Squadra Corsa Motorsport department. And absolutely still pinching myself moment. Only a month after that, in February of 2014, my dad and I flew out to Bologna, to Sant'Agata Bolognese, to meet with Giorgio Sanna, the newly appointed head of Lamborghini Squadra Corsa the Motorsport department, where he showed me the 3D renders of the newly to be developed Huracan Super Trofeo and GT3 race car, explained to me what the plans were for the future of Lamborghini Squadra Corsa and their entire motorsport department, constructing racing cars, hosting their Super Trofeo series themselves, and developing a young driver program, a GT3 junior program, and a Lamborghini factory driver program. And they invited me and selected me to be one of the 10 drivers to be entered in the very first Lamborghini Squadra Corsa Young Driver Development Program for 2014. This meant that now, after all those years, I was in a program where Lamborghini was actually going to assess my capabilities in all of the facets that they found important to see if I could be one of the factory drivers for Lamborghini in the future. Throughout this year of 2014, I drove the Lamborghini Gallardo Super Trofeo Championship in Europe, winning multiple races, fighting for the championship all the way until the end, doing events with Lamborghini Squadra Corsa in which they assessed my capabilities of being an instructor and brand representative for customer events. And we were part of the development team of the brand new Huracan Super Trofeo race car in order to see how we would work with engineers and if we could actually be a good test driver and development driver for their race cars. Out of all these results, 3 of the drivers out of these 10 were selected and promoted to the factory team in 2015, of which I was one of the 3. And this was truly the start of my career with Lamborghini. So from this point on, in 2015, it has been a crazy roller coaster in which I got to win the very first race for Lamborghini as a manufacturer back in 2015 in Monza. I've gone on countless events as an instructor for Lamborghini, going all around the world instructing customers how to drive these incredible supercars. I got to go on press launches, test drives. I've done development work for race cars and road cars, actually going to the secret testing facility of Nardò in southern Italy, which was an incredible moment yet again. I've gone to do stunt driving for commercials and other videos. It has just been a roller coaster ride ever since for the last 5 years, and still I cannot believe that this has happened and that I actually got into this position. And it all came down to that one race in January of 2014 in Dubai, where I got the right people at the right time. I was there in the right place, doing the right thing, displaying me to the right people, and getting me in with Lamborghini. Now, I fully understand that I have been extremely lucky and fortunate to have been in the position where I have people around me that could support me in this entire journey. Obviously, all those steps aren't just for anyone, and I know that I'm extremely blessed and fortunate to have gotten these opportunities. But in the meantime, it has also taken a lot of hard work throughout all these years. It's been 15 years already that I'm now racing cars to get me to the skill level where I can actually now work and perform in this way. And I'm also still extremely grateful for the fact that I got to finish my education, because in everything that I do today, I have a lot of benefit from the skill set that I got in this business school about marketing, communication, knowing my languages, knowing how to behave in a business matter. So that has also been a very big part in the fact that I got into the position where I am in now. So that is my story. That is basically how it all came together. It still is exceptionally special to me as well to be able to tell this story in this way. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to hear more stories, if you want to hear more about crazy experience that I had, please leave comments down below and I can post more videos of telling you stories about me and my Lamborghini racing career. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you indeed enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys very soon again.